So I think the more interesting topics to discuss around funding than actual funding, and it's usually the success of the business. And that means if you're a deep technology company at the beginning, it's really important the technology to work well. Then it's important to have a few clients that would test the product, be able to testify the product works well and all that. And that really brings in the first investors.
Hey everyone, we will talk today with Raul Popa, CEO and co-founder of TypingDNA, an AI company focused on biometrics and that basically says if it's you based on the way you type. Welcome, Raul.
Thank you very much for the invite. Happy to be here.
Before we move on and dig into today's topics I've prepared for you, I would just love to create a little bit the stage. This should be a very casual discussion where we help other founders from your insights. That's why I would love to extract as much wisdom as I can from your head. And also, as a side note, if I will forget that this is a podcast and I will put two sensitive questions for you to say, hey, Cristina, stop, I cannot answer that. Okay, that
Of
would
course.
come from coaching. All right.
Don't worry, I will not answer sensitive questions.
So we have two topics for today, but before I'm really curious, how did you come up with the idea of the company? Because basically, as far as I know, there is not much competition in AI in typing. And so I believe that this is very fascinating and exciting as well, but also not so much usual, especially that you have some years experience. And also who came up with the name because it's pretty cool.
Uh, it, so it wasn't actually. There's a lot of research in the space, not a lot of competition, so not a lot of companies actually building the same kind of thing. But there was research before, and there's still research conducted by different universities, different researchers. It used to be yeah, it used to go like maybe 20 years back or even more. There are patents even 30 years old around typing biometrics. So it's not that new of a science. Behavioral biometrics in general, it's an interesting domain, and I get fascinated by it while doing other type of user behavior analysis and using machine learning for other user behavior analysis. And at some point, I figured out, I found this typing biometrics domain, which fascinated me. The fact that you can basically recognize a person just by the way they type. And then I realized the research was not up to date, and I knew a lot of other researchers in the biometric space that did different things, and I thought, those things can apply to this type of technology, and then build something on top of it and make something better. And then I thought this is something that I really want to do, but I wasn't sure. So for like 2 years, I researched like as a hobby, and then at some point, I decided to start building a company out of it. Actually, I was involved in a couple other companies. I sold some of my shares in a previous one, and then I decided to just take a break, and actually wanted to take like a sabbatical year or so, or a few months at least. But 3 days later, I started working on this. And the name is just I tried different domain names. I wanted to find different domain names that would work best, and I had the list, and this was one that checked all the boxes and was available. That's basically how I picked it. I had a few other ideas, but they were either already taken or were not as good. So eventually, I ended up with TypingDNA. We ended up with TypingDNA.
So it was your idea because I know you have two co-founders as well.
Yeah, so I started the whole project and the research behind it and everything, and then at some point I asked a couple of friends to join as co-founders, and then we started growing from there.
Thank you for sharing. So let's dig into the two topics I prepared for you. The first one would be, because we have a market where other founders are looking and watching. So I would love to help funded founders, those who maybe just raise capital right now, or they are during different phases and stages. And because you do have two realities: before you get the funds and after, you have even preconceived notions about how things would be once you have the money in the bank and what happens after. I would love to know your insights, especially that you had different rounds. And the second topic would be about the growth pains every company goes once it gets funded. And when you have different expectations and stakeholders on the table, everything shifts, especially also your roles as a CEO. Let's start with the first one. So funding. You went through a pre-seed round, three seed rounds, and the Series A. And this happened, the Series A, 2 years ago. So you already have a lot of experience afterwards. You can share a lot of insights with others who are maybe more recent in this, or also as a retrospect about your learning curve. So let's start with the pre-seed round. I imagine this happened around 2016.
Yeah, I mean, people call this pre-seed and seed and seed A, Series A, and then they go like, I mean, it really doesn't matter the name you use. It used to be back in the day, it used to be like Series A, B, C, and that was all. And then the idea of a seed came in, and then there's also the concept of a bridge, which you basically take between two rounds. But the whole idea is, when you start a company, you need some money to start it off, and that's usually a seed or a pre-seed. It's a pre-seed when you basically raise a very small amount of money just to go from an idea to like an MVP. Is a seed when you go from an MVP to like a larger yeah, a product you can sell. And it's usually a Series A once you have clients and you want to grow and start showing growth sign. And then afterwards, we talk about growth rounds.
What did you expect with your first check to happen? What was your desired dream? And then what happened later once you had that money? And especially, I would love to understand those things you didn't expect. Okay, now I have the money, I need to deliver something. And what were your struggles immediately after receiving the first check?
So I don't think it's necessarily something completely new, at least for me. So I was involved in larger companies, managing I don't know, tens of employees, working with millions of dollars before in funding. Yeah, we were mostly bootstrapped, so a lot of the money we actually made ourselves, and then we reinvest those. But basically, I was involved in previous businesses of kind of the same size, even larger actually than when I started TypingDNA. So basically, TypingDNA for me was um, scaling down. So, and it's not that complicated. Basically, instead of working with 50 people or 100 people, you work with five, and then you just try to make everything work with those five people, and everybody kind of has to do some work that is not in the title, in their position. They don't they're not initially required to do that as the different roles, but eventually everybody does whatever it takes to succeed the next round. So initial money really help you a little. So basically everybody's significantly underpaid for the quality of you don't, like most people at the beginning, you're not juniors. You're gonna do so work at create a startup with junior people. You pretty much need senior people, the best the best you can. So you're gonna give them stock, and basically that's all it is. So for initial, let's say, year or two in a startup, you're gonna pretty much incentivize everyone with stock and very small salary until you get to a point where you can raise more money, and then you can give them maybe salary is almost as similar as the market, but then you want to start to hire more people that don't really care about stock and they care about have salaries like they get in the market. So you start to ramp up salaries and other costs, of course, costs for marketing and sales and travel and meeting clients and all that, depending on the type of company you have. So you need larger amounts of money, you need larger team. So that's basically how it progressed from one round to another. It's never like a point where you kind of have excess of money. It's just maybe for a while you have a plan that will work out, and you need money for like a year or two, and then at right after you get the funds, you probably don't need right then and there to raise more money. But I've seen a lot of startups, a lot of companies raising every 5 or 6 months another batch. So it really depends on how fast you grow and how fast you want to grow and how much money you can actually absorb. Because sometimes even if you get a lot of money as a funding, you're just gonna dilute yourself and you're not gonna be able to grow faster. So yeah, and often in Romania is about the fact it's harder to raise money, but once you have a good business, it's more interesting, and harder to think what you want to do with those.
Okay, so if I understood correctly, you were pretty much prepared for all of these rounds and you knew what to expect. I wonder if you had a tipping point moment. What was the first moment when you said, oh my God, okay, things are now shifting rapidly and I need to speed up my game, let's say this way?
I would not say that. I think it's more everything came up naturally. I think it was a moment where we realized that going local doesn't really make sense. So we need to go global. So we need to go to like US, and that was, if you want, a dipping point where we realized that we cannot build TypingDNA as a company starting from Romania alone. So we have to be in United States, or in other parts of the world, like probably some countries in Europe would qualify as well. But definitely building a company out of Romania alone is very, very difficult. I don't know anyone who did this with great success. So yeah, that's probably the tipping point if you want. I would not necessarily use the term tipping point, because I think of the book of Malcolm Gladwell, which kind of reminds me of a different concept.
Mm-hmm. I think this connects a little bit with the second aspects, what happened with the growth stage. So yeah, you started in Romania and then you moved in the US. And this is indeed a very important moment for a company when you start to implement remotely and the CEO is gone. So first, when did you move in the US? Before the Series A or after or during that time?
Yeah, before. So we went through Techstars New York City, which is Techstars is a huge accelerator with like 30 programs at the time, and one of their main programs is the one in New York City. Actually, it was a second or a third program that they started. They started in Boston. They moved to Colorado, to Boulder, Colorado, which is their headquarters. But all this time, they also had the program in New York City, which is actually, I think, the program that had the largest number of startups that went through. So it's like I don't know, 500 startups, something like that, hundreds of startups, and we went through this program. Very, very intensive. We met with really a lot of investors, a lot of funders, a lot of talented people from all over the bigger companies that are mentors in this accelerator. And that was the moment when we basically moved to US as a company.
Okay. This is an important moment I would love to discuss a little bit more because, for example, today there are so many remote companies and many of them are completely unprepared. There were many who just jumped into remote forced by COVID, others who truly need to compete in the market and start to have this remote workplace style. So in your case, this was more or less forced, but still you divided a little bit the company. You moved to the US. I'm not sure if you took colleagues with you or who went with you. How was that kind of transitional period between moving there and being a CEO from afar?
It was easy because of the pandemic, so everybody kind of had to work from home, and it didn't really matter that I'm in US and other people are in Romania or in other parts of the world.
Oh, right. So your timing was perfect. I believe you just moved
Yeah.
exactly when COVID.
Before the pandemic, but basically the
Mhm.
pandemic helped because we needed as a company to work with that mindset that really doesn't matter where everybody is, and yeah, it was easy because of that.
There are several different stages, and I would love to hear also where you can bring some tips and tricks to them for
They're
their
more interesting. So I think they're more interesting topics to discuss around funding than actual funding, and it's usually the success of the business. And that means if you're a deep technology company at the beginning, it's really important the technology to work well. Then it's important to have a few clients that would, test the product, be able to testify the product works well and all that. And that really brings in the first investors. So it's not, investor will not just come to you and give you money unless you have something interesting in terms of like product or strategy, or you're already making a lot of money from clients and then they want to jump on board because they see it as a multiplier for their funds. But very often in the beginning, you have to have a really good technology. If you're a deep technology company like us, if you're a company that doesn't build necessarily something completely new, you have to have some sort of sales force or some sort of like results that you can show in any way, some results that you can show that need to be good in order for you to be able to raise those funds. So it's and then you need those funds to go to get even more results. So it's like it's a longer chain of events that need to happen, and just raising capital is not necessarily a success. You basically dilute yourself whenever you're raising money. It's just a moment where your bank accounts will be larger than your actual company value in a way, or not actually, company value will be large, but you will not get that much money from clients at that point. So then you want to convert money you have from investors in money that comes from clients. And by the time you start doing that, you're going to want more money from investors and so forth. Of course, you can go 100% back bootstrap. And I was involved in a few companies that went 100% bootstrap before. So the whole thing is that the money that you make, you want to reinvest them. Like pretty much all the main mom and pop sort of shops out there, that's pretty much what happens. They may be able to get a small loan from like a bank or something to start a business, but usually it's not going to be a big, VC behind them, and so they have to reinvest whatever they make. In a VC game, the whole idea is that you build something like in a startup game, if you want. The whole thing is you build something that has a potential to grow much, much larger than a shop on a particular street in a particular city or something like that. So it's something that can go global. So once you understand that, there's no reason to stop at just one city, one country, one vertical, and so forth. So you want to go forward to basically acquire a big piece of the market. So that's why it makes sense to not wait for profit or not wait for to have a lot of income before you actually start reinvesting and growing. You want to grow faster because others will have this mentality as well. And by the time you prove the business to be successful, others will just raise tons of money to make to pick part of the market before you. So in any business, once you realize it's a potential cash cow, you want to grab land. So, but you grab land with investors' money, because you with your own money will take more time, and you will not be able you will not end up with a pie large enough with what you could end if you go with investors' money. That's pretty much the whole game idea.
This brings me to the next question. How your CEO role changed from the beginning to now, for example, your duties, your daily duties.
So generally speaking, at the beginning, you're gonna do everything that needs to be done. And by the time passes, you're gonna have more people that are willing to do the things that you don't want. And eventually you're gonna be able to do only what you want. And that's pretty much about any kind of general job where you have to do a little bit more things, management, but also things that nobody else wants to do and are very important for the business. So I think the vision is that the CEO eventually will only, think about a few things and decide on those few things, or have the decision on those few things, and then maybe talk to like a few key players in the market or key analysts or investors and so forth, and that's pretty much it. Unfortunately, spoiler alert, there's no such thing. So by the time passes, as the time passes as a CEO, you still have to wear a lot of hats and you still have to do a lot of things that nobody else wants to. But you start having more people that are able to do the minor things that you used to do before, or the things that used to do before, and they do much better. And at some point, you actually feel like it's actually, I think it's a synthetic position. So technically, I think a really smart team can exist without the CEO. But you really want to have everybody else on the same page. So eventually, the role of the CEO is just to keep everybody on the same page.
This is what I wanted to ask. What do you think now today is your most important role? And you just answered that. For example, in this stage, I have a topic that it's brought on in many conversations about, now everything shifted for me. I do have a board. I need to talk with them. I mean, half of my time it became discussion, also receiving insights from investors and the board, but also to know how to navigate with the discussions, because each stakeholder has a different agenda, and this is something I wasn't prepared to handle, and it takes so much out of my energy. So this is something I get a lot, and I would love to ask you if you went through this and how did you handle the situation in case yes.
Of course, there's the time is limited, so you don't have time for everything you want to do or everything you need to do. So time management in general, it's very tricky. So you have to delegate things, and it's always you're always gonna have a lot of tabs open tabs, and you're not going to be able to do everything that you want. And sometimes you want to do some things that you like, and other things that are more important are waiting for you to do. It's very, very complex thing. You need to be an organized person. Otherwise, you need a very organized person with you that will help you go through everything that you need to go at the right time. I don't know. It's I don't know if I answered your question, but basically, so I understand you went through all these time management problems with a lot of things that you need to take care of. And
how do you manage your relationship with your board members and investors?
Oh, with board members, it's just like, so investors, the largest ones, designate people on the board. Now, in bigger companies, usually the founders designate board members, and sometimes investors as well. But the thing is, when you pick an investor, you will not necessarily know who's going to be on your board. I mean, you can discuss this, and things can change. So you can have one board member that you really like, and that at the end you end up with somebody you don't like that much. The thing is, it's obviously not our case, but just I'm saying, generally speaking, the board is made of people that would have a commercial interest in the company, and sometimes they have more experience than you, or vast experience in conducting startups of maybe similar size or similar type of companies. And usually they're very good at helping you advance with the company and take some difficult decisions. um, yeah, we had so far really good board members that helped us decide whenever we needed to decide on very important stuff. Sometimes it feels like, hey, we got this, and we just don't want to talk with the board members, like the founders. Like, we really think, we can do this without board members. But then we go and talk with them, and tell them what we think and whatever. And sometimes even like just them asking questions and hearing whatever we have to say really helps, because sometimes they ping back, and new ideas come off of that. I think it's very important when you start off a discussion with board members to just understand that they're in the same team. So eventually, with very minor situations when they might be on a different team, very minor situations, we didn't encounter them, not as much, but I know other cases. Yeah, there are very popular cases where board was not on the same page with founders and so forth. But in our case, most of the time, they are in the same sort of on the same page, and we want the same thing. And once you understand that, it becomes really good conversation. The conversation you have in the board, and decisions and everything, kind of it's the right way to do it. I would, if before starting this kind of company, I was involved in the bootstrap company, so we didn't have investors at all. So we didn't have board. It was basically me and another guy, and eventually we decided to ask more people from the company, more managers, to just participate in the sort of decision making sort of meetings. And turned out to be mostly a good idea, because sometimes you just want to ping ideas with other people. The minus was that these were good managers in whatever they did, but they didn't have the entrepreneurship acumen, the risk, the ability to take risks, to think in terms of like spending a lot of money on something they may or may not succeed. Those kind of things, where investors usually, and board members that are appointed by investors, usually they have more experience in this space, so they're able to really help you with really tough decisions.
What do you think is the most important skill a CEO founder can have to have a great relationship with his board?
I think it's I'm not the best at this, but this, I think, is the best thing to
For
have.
you, of course.
Yeah, no, I think for everyone this is kind of the best thing, but I'm not the best at this.
Mhm.
So I think if you understand that board members are involved in tens of other ventures and businesses and things, and if you understand that very, very well, and you put more time into explaining everything, every decision you want to put through the board, explaining that very, very in very, very simple terms, with images, with everything you can, and bullet points, instead of putting out there a lot of information, just organize it in such way so they can very, very fast grasp it. Usually they're very smart people, have really good experience, and all you need to do is simplify everything to a level that they can grasp very, very fast, and they can be helpful. Sometimes I succeed in that, but not all the time, and I don't. Maybe I think lately I'm better at that, but I think that's an important skill. So how to make everything, how do you speak the language that they speak very, very fast? How do you put everything in their terms so they can be helpful? Otherwise, they're just going to be want to be helpful, but they're not going to be as helpful as they can, because most of the time will be spent either by them understanding the thing, or by them jumping to conclusions that are wrong and trying to explain what you should do where you understand it's not the right thing. But it's all it's all a problem of how you explain things as a CEO or a manager or founder or chairman or whatever person in the board you are that conducts the meeting.
All right. I'm curious, what's your favorite activity right now as a CEO? What do you love to do, but maybe you don't have enough time to do, but you would love to?
So I'm a technical CEO, so I have a technical background, and this is the company that is very technical. I would say I like the technical part of it, and I like the product part of it. And I think in a startup, it's very important to work on a product market fit. That means, putting everything together, from the technology to like what the client want, to like what people can do and how much money you can price that for and all that. That particular task, I think, is a very challenging task, and it's not the CEO job. It's a job maybe for like a technical CEO sometimes, but it's usually like a job of the chief product, which even if we hired some product people, we were never able to find somebody who was that good, because the type of technology that we built, it's just too complex. It's just too complex for a person that you just hired to do any kind of product, to just look at it and figured it out that well. So I like doing that, but also because I didn't find the right person. Sometimes I like doing other things, but in most cases I found the right person. So I think we do have the best chief operating, if you want, chief marketing, chief sales, and chief technical officer. So or the roles that these positions need. So I kind of feel I would not do a better job in their place. I'm thinking, what other places or positions I can fill, and I would like to fill up more. Definitely the research and the product area is very close to my heart. But then, of course, I really like meeting investors, meeting big clients, potential every big company that wants to discuss partnerships and integrations, and where the technology can be bring to have even more impact. Because it's one thing to sell to a client that has, I don't know, 10,000 employees or 100,000 end customers, but it's a completely different thing to partner with a company that has 100 clients like that. So definitely looking forward to whatever I can do to make a larger impact. And those are definitely tasks that I love. I don't like the I don't know, there's many things you have to do as a CEO or president. You have to sign a lot of documents, to go through a lot of legal stuff and all that. We have some legal people that go through that, but every now and then I have to verify and check and sign documents and go through all those operations, if you want. It's not necessarily fun. So those definitely I don't like, and I don't like to be called a boss or anything like that. I prefer a horizontal sort of kind of horizontal company kind of culture.
You went through a long learning curve, I suppose, during the last 6 years with TypingDNA. I wonder now if you should pick one skill or skill set that you think it's your strongest point as a founder CEO, what would that be?
I think I don't know. I don't want to appear as
You won't
bragging or anything.
Just say it.
So I'm not 100% sure if it's my top skill, whatever, but I definitely think that's a valuable skill. Whenever you're able to see a little bit into the future, and you start understanding, you're seeing much far than others, when others just don't see it. And just talk to others and tell them like what you see, and they don't see it, and you then realize that that's actually something more than regular people see.
So this
And
would be
once
forecasting. You're a good
it's
forecaster.
not just
No?
forecasting. I'm not saying that I'm necessarily the best at it, but what I'm saying is that when you have that kind of view, um, it's a very complex set of skills that you need to not just see that, you need to also bring that into everyone else's vision to make sure everybody kind of understands how to get there. Some people will not understand to get there; they will just do it because you tell them, and often because they don't see the final result of what's possible, they may lose trust, or they may get frustrated. They may want different type of results, and that's very complicated. So a good I think a skill that I'm improving, and I would like to improve even more, is this part of vision and strategy, how to make that vision um, more visible for everyone else.
And communicate it inside your company, right?
Yeah,
The
but
right
it's not
way.
just the communication; it's also the realization about that, and
The strategy
communicate.
part.
Yeah, sometimes you cannot communicate entire strategy to everyone. It's just too much, and people just don't want to hear that much. So you want to adapt everything to whatever they would find useful for them to continue or to do their job. And so sometimes you have to sort of adapt the main idea, the big idea, to whatever people want to hear or need to hear, to go from where they are to where you need to be. So even if you tell them, like, here's the big vision, they want to sort of understand, okay, but how do we get there, and why we need to get to step B before getting to step C, why we're not going all the way to step C. And sometimes the questions are very good, sometimes I'm wrong, and others are right, and that's fine. That's totally fine. Also, I think this is a very important skill as a CEO, to not behave as a boss, but basically tell others to be as transparent with you, and make sure you get a lot of feedback, and that you do not react bad at negative feedback. Negative feedback is actually quite good if you react good to it.
How important is culture for you? Because you are mentioning people and being on board with your vision, and also know how to put that vision in action inside your company, especially if you see things before others. How important is culture for you, and how you maintain your culture in a way, in a fast growing pace, especially that you grew your headcount with 41% during the last 6 months, and that's not an easy cookie to take so many new people inside the company.
So I think in terms of culture, what I've seen very often lately is companies are just embracing this diversity for the sake of diversity culture. In my opinion, the culture of a company should be just just make things happen. It's just you just need to everybody to understand that it's a company. It's not a, I don't know, it's not a club. It's not a thing we do for hobby. Maybe I like it, or a few of us have really big passion about what we're doing, which is great, but it's not a club. We don't do it to feel well. We do it to feel, to have success. So I think it's very important in any company to define what you want to achieve, and that's and what success means in terms of the company, and what you want to achieve. If people have no idea about the goals of a business, they will just figure out goals for themselves, and then will just think, because whenever you training for a job, you think, whatever you want to do in life, not which job would make you more money. Because if the question would be when you go to like university and train for a job, you would just like go for the job that would bring you more money, everybody will do the same job eventually. So the thing is, you also want to factor in things like what you want to do, what makes you happy, and all that. But if you think with this strategy all the way, it's good for a person to think like that. But for a company, it's not good. You don't have to, you know, the company purpose is not to make everybody happy in the company. That is that's a nice to have, that you want. Obviously, you don't want people to just to feel bad at a job, or to feel neglected, or to feel frustrated, or anything like that. You want them to be happy, but not as a primary objective. The primary objective is to have success. And if people don't understand that, and a lot of companies nowadays, they don't understand that, because there's so much thing about this, embracing diversity, embracing who you are, what you want to do, what you want to, make, and all these things, that basically becomes about the employee, but in such way that it's not about the company anymore. And I think it should be about the company. Diversity is really, really good. It's very important to have different people thinking in different ways, but eventually everyone has to understand what's, the company trying to achieve.
Interesting. I love your conviction to be a little bit near the main wave and currents and state your voice. I appreciate that. And now the second part of the question, how did you integrate so many new employees during a short period of time? How do you handle onboarding and making sure that everyone is onboarded properly?
Yeah, in a startup, you don't hire only, so you hire usually you hire a ratio of senior to junior that has more seniors than juniors, at least at the beginning. And you want to incentivize them with stock and everything, and the fact that they're actually going to have an impact and all that. So you're not going to hire that many juniors if you want. So because of that, the onboarding is much easier. In a larger organization, it's going to be a lot of so the way the company will grow is, if you have 1,000 employees, if you take interns, you have juniors, you take all these like very entry level people, maybe very, very good in terms of like the skills that they already have from like university and all that, but they're not business people at this point yet. They're just entry level, so you need to onboard them, and you need months and months to work with them. And in a pandemic, for example, that's very hard, because they have to work from home, they have to like prepare themselves almost alone, and maybe a few meetings every now and then cannot make things happen. So what you want to do as a startup is to limit the number of junior employees as much as you can. If you do not need junior employees, you usually don't go for that. And it's multiple reasons why. Also, the fact that in a startup, you go from one run to another. You're gonna have very short amount of time in which you have to show progress. And if you take an employee that is only going to be able to provide um, for the company in like a year or half a year or so because at the beginning that person just learns and try to figures out what how to do their job, and the managers, the most senior people that you have in the company, will just figure out how to make these people work, how to make these people understand what they have to do and so forth, how to onboard these people and so forth. Then we will put too much effort in growing the team, and not enough into actually growing the business. And what you want to grow the business. That's the goal, that you grow the team because you want to grow the business on short term. So then you need people that are more qualified at the beginning. It's a counterintuitive thinking, and a lot of startups make the mistake to hire junior people because they don't have enough money to hire senior ones, and then everything becomes a struggle, how to onboard, how to prepare everyone, how to make everybody work, and it's usually a mess inside the company when you have that many junior employees. It's just, my opinion is, it's better to have a small amount of employees that are more senior than a large amount of employees that are more junior, especially at the beginning, especially if you grow fast. But that's different from in some companies where the job is very repeatable, but you need a lot of people doing that job, then you may take more junior employees. So I think in order to be able to scale and keep the company growing as well, the trick we employed, and it's best to employ, is to hire people that are more senior, and of course incentivize them as you can with salary, but also with stock. We have most of our team in Romania, where most companies don't distribute stock options to them. to employees, but we do, so we have an upside because of that.
Seems that you handle stress pretty casually, naturally. So I see this as a trait of yours. And I would like to highlight it. This is natural to you. You were always like this, or you learned during the years?
I learned it. I think it's I'm always skeptical about how things can progress, and I always build up mental plans about different possibilities. But once I build up the mental plans for all the possibilities, then I'm fine to go forward with any of the possibilities because you know the fallbacks. So it's basically like I overthink things, and that's how I become less dependent on the risk.
So you are preparing, you have a preparation in your mind, in your head before
Yeah,
something.
but sometimes, so I used to overthinking. Actually, at this point, I don't overthink that much. It's just maybe I do this naturally, but I sometimes think, you know, what's the worst that can happen? You know, because sometimes like it's really like you're trying something, you're gonna spend some money on some new idea or some idea, you're gonna, you know, you need to test a lot of things, and every time is some sort of risk, some sort of, you know, something that will not work well. And I've seen people that are afraid to lose, and because they're very very smart, but they're afraid to lose. And if you're afraid to lose, you should not be in a position of top management.
That's a
Or I
weakness.
mean, you can be in a position of top management in things like operations, that's fine, but in things like executive, like chief executive role, you need somebody who's able to take some risks and be able to sleep with them, you know, without thinking all the time, okay, that's a risk, you know, that can happen, you know, those money can be spent wrong. That's fine. It's for sure is going to be a lot of wrong decisions, and that is fine, because you cannot do something really big without, you know, sometimes deciding with not enough information, deciding to do something that's not 100% baked. You don't know for sure which way is going to land. You just know how to make it right, you know, playing whatever it is, just an idea. So yeah, it's very important how you think about risk and to accept the risk that is part of any startup and every you know business journey.
You consider yourself as a pragmatic?
Not 100%,
80.
like 80%, yes. So I definitely love delving into theory and understanding the depth of everything. But in terms of business, I don't think you need to do that all the time, and you need to focus more on actually achieving goals. So yeah, a lot of people can get, you know, distracted if there are too many topics, you know, to discuss. And if you're a person like me, it's fine. I can handle multiple topics in the same time and think of multiple topics and still, you know, keep my eye on what's important to do. But other people just lose focus. So for the sake of the business, I would not, you know, I would be more pragmatic. For sake of like personal development, definitely, I think the it's important to focus on details and on process and everything else, not just the goals. So it's very very important what you what you what is it for.
Before we wrap up, do you have a couple of minutes to spare? I have extra questions around your product this time, and I think you will love
Sure.
it because I know you are in research and you're also a tech founder. So I presume that you would have loved to have more time to develop a perfect product from the beginning. And here, especially the typing DNA is in banking. And so you are touching sensitive information. I am curious right now, what's the accuracy of your solution that you're providing to B2Bs, mostly, I suppose? And what's next?
Yeah, so the solution is very accurate. Of course, it's because we're talking about typing biometrics, not biometrics in general, face recognition, anything like that, it's not going to be as accurate in pure terms. But if you put everything together, how easy it is to record typing biometrics, just looking at how people type on a regular keyboard or even on a touch screen. If you put everything together, things like the recording and how it's processed, how you can, authenticate a person, all that, it all becomes so fascinating uh, in terms of like, actually, this is very accurate. And in terms of like, this can be done 100% passive. You don't need any other sensors and all that. We created recently a tool that you install on your computer, Mac or PC, and then just looks at how you type and tells you the mood. So we predict 6 different moods just based on how you type. So you type during the day, and then you can look back at every hour and realize when you were more stressed, more happy, more tired, and so forth, more energized, and just based on how you type. So definitely there's a lot of interesting things you can do with typing biometrics that that we like to look into more in the future. And we have other interesting projects around the space.
Just a second, I wanted to ask about this because it's fascinating. I come from SEL, I was co-founder in 2 AI companies, and one of them in spare speech, emotional recognition. So I spent a lot of time digging inside this issue. So where are you right now? You have 6, I understood you had 3 emotions, 3 states, and now you have 6. What are the 6?
No, we actually tested about 20 different moods, but eventually ended up with 6 that we made public. And
you're in beta with this, right? You're still gathering data, or how accurate is this?
No. It's alpha version. You can test it. You can test it. You can download it and install it on your computer. The 3 moods are free. Most focused, stressed, and tired, and then there's happy, calm, and energetic that we give if you want to participate in a public research. So it's a public research on our website where you type a few texts and then you label your moods, and then we use this kind of input from thousands of people to improve our algorithms. But for the moment being, these algorithms are about 95% accurate. So basically, some of the data that we were recording, we kept separate, and then we predicted the label, and we matched the label with what we predicted, and 95% we were able to predict the accurate mood that the actual
95% for the 6 moods, but that's awesome. That's really awesome.
Yeah, that is very awesome. Yeah, I agree.
Congratulations. This is a new direction of the company. So I'm curious what you want to do with it. If you want to open a new line or just integrate it with your.
So it's not necessary. It's not necessarily a new direction for the company. It's just a research project. The company direction, I think, it's still to focus on authentication. Especially, we have this product that called ActiveLock that runs on any computer and learns how you type, how you use the computer, and then if anyone else is using that, we're able to lock the device. So we lock the device if somebody else is trying to use your computer. This is very useful for organizations that have people working remotely, pretty much everyone at this point. And it's like a next generation endpoint protection tool for zero trust, sort of, improvement of security posture.
This sounds very similar, with every computer in every house. This could be something like ActiveLock for every computer or mobile. Is this for mobile as well? Or it will be?
It will be. Right now, we don't have a mobile ActiveLock. But yeah, so in terms of like what's next for TypingDNA, we're focusing on this continuous authentication technology or zero trust endpoint protection that reduces unauthorized use. Sounds very intricate with this all these terms, but basically it's a subfield of a subfield of a subfield. Everything is related to cybersecurity. The idea that you want to verify a user all the time, not just when they log in. But it's a very, very important part of the whole story, and nobody else is solving it at this point.
Yeah, this is truly ambitious, and I wish you the best of luck with it. I am looking forward to see what's coming from TypingDNA during the next years, because maybe, hey, you will be here in all of my computers and in my mobile.
Hopefully, we should be everywhere. Yes,
Hmm.
we should be everywhere and should protect every computer eventually.
I love this kind of dreams, and we need that, especially in the current environment. Thank you for your time. This was an interesting conversation, I would say, and I hope we threw a lot of nuggets for other founders who would find some of your wisdom inspirational for them. Until the next time,